Welcome to the next episode of the Dark Web Deacon. Before we begin, be sure to smash that subscribe button, click the bell to turn on notifications, and check out the latest items in the Dark Web Deacon merch store. There is a link in the video description below, and become a true Dark Web enthusiast. New videos are published every Monday and Thursday. Fraud comes in many forms, from true name fraud to synthetic ID fraud, account takeover, first-party and third-party fraud, just to name a few. There's a tendency to lump different types of fraud together into one big problem, and then look for one single solution to address them all. For today, we're going to pull at the thread and look specifically at third-party fraud. What is third-party fraud? Well, it's the best-known type of fraud, despite not often being called specifically third-party fraud in the media. Third-party fraud very generally is known as identity theft. It occurs when a malicious actor uses another person's identifiable information to open new accounts without the knowledge of the individual whose information is being used and abused. This type of fraud is unique from first-party fraud or synthetic ID fraud because it involves a known victim who's willing to collaborate in the investigation and resolution, for the simple reason that they don't want to be responsible for the obligations and expenses made under their name. Third-party fraud is often the only type of activity that's classified as actual fraud by financial institutions. Since there is a victim associated with it, third-party fraud tends to have a shorter lifespan than other types of fraud. When victims become aware of what's happened, they generally take steps to protect themselves and intervene where they know their identity has been potentially misused. As a result, the overall timeline for third-party fraud is shorter than other types of fraud, with fraudsters acting quickly to maximize the funds they're able to amass before busting out. How will third-party fraud impact me as a consumer in the future? Well, as the digital world continues to grow, more and more personally identifiable information is available on the dark web due to data breaches and various scams. Given that half of consumers anticipate increasing their online spending in the coming years, we can anticipate that the amount of PII already available to criminals will only continue to grow. All this will lead to identity theft and increase the risk of third-party fraud against consumers. So what can you do to prevent third-party fraud? Well, here are 10 free tips the Dark Web Deacon has come up with to secure your identity against not just third-party fraud, but fraud in general. 1. Make a list of all your online accounts and categorize to help prioritize accounts to secure first. So think about creating a checklist of your financial accounts, your social media accounts, and your entertainment accounts. Number 2. Make an offline list on paper of all your accounts and passwords and store in a secure location. Number 3. Get your yearly free credit report from all 3 credit bureaus to get a baseline on your credit history. Tip number 4. Leverage free dark web scans of emails, SSNs, and phone numbers that are available from several vendors. Tip number 5. If you do have kids, freeze your child's credit file if they're under the age of 16 across all 3 credit bureaus. Number 6, lock your credit file in at least one bureau with online services. 3 is ideal, and they are mostly free, but unfortunately they're not coordinated, so you can't just do it with one bureau and expect your credit file to be locked across all 3. You kind of need to you'd have to manually do it across all 3. So I recommend at least doing it on one of them, and chances are that'll at least help mitigate. Number 7, make sure your home Wi-Fi network requires a password to access it. Number 8, have a fake email and random password for non-essential online accounts you create. So, for example, if you're using, Ryanair or Pottery Barn or, gardening.com or whatever the kind of non-essential vendors you work with, use a separate email that's separate from your main email that's tied to things like your financial accounts. There is the Google Password Checkup extension. If you are using Chrome, it is built into the newer versions of Chrome, but if you are using an older version, check out Google Password Checkup extension. What that will do is when you are using the Chrome browser and logging into different websites, it will check if your account and password combination have been potentially part of previous breaches, and then recommend you change it. And then number 10, use two-factor authentication, 2FA as it's called, on all important accounts if they exist. So with two-factor, what you do is you need both a password, and also you'll receive a text message with a PIN to log into accounts. So definitely do this for your financial accounts and more other services, whether that are starting to offer this type of login. So if it is available, make sure you enable it and leverage it. Thanks for watching, and as always, please like, subscribe, and provide comments, and turn on notifications by clicking the bell in order to check out future videos published twice a week.